All right, let's dive into a fantastic historical puzzle. It's part detective story, part a wild lesson in management, and it all kicks off with one of the most ridiculously long and confusing job titles you have ever seen. Seriously, get ready for this.
So picture this. The year is 1016. We are in the Song Dynasty, and Emperor Zhenzong is in charge. For the better part of a decade, he's been all in on these mystical ceremonies and grand spiritual projects, but, the real world has a way of showing up unannounced.
And this is our central mystery. This right here. This is the official title of the Emperor's top official, his Chancellor. It is a 48-character-long monster of a title. I mean, what on earth does all that even mean? And why in the world would you make a job title so complicated? Let's start cracking this code.
To even begin to understand the title, first we've got to understand the man and the, let's just say, bizarre political climate that he was working in.
Okay, so that summer, a massive locust plague is just tearing through the country. But the emperor is so focused on proving that heaven is on his side, his officials get creative. They start reporting that the locusts, moved by the emperor's incredible virtue, are actually committing suicide instead of eating the crops. The emperor even brings dead locusts to court to show everyone. But his chancellor, this guy named Wang Dam, he's the only one saying, hey, maybe we shouldn't celebrate just yet.
And then, you can't make this stuff up, in a moment of perfect comedic timing, right in the middle of a court meeting, a giant swarm of very much alive and very hungry locusts flies right past the main hall. You can just imagine the dead silence in the room. The emperor turns to Wang Dan and basically says, okay, you were right. If I'd thrown a party for this, I would have been a laughingstock.
That little moment just perfectly sums up the guy at the heart of our story, a total pragmatist living in a world of delusion. So that brings us right back to our main question. Who was this guy, and how do we even begin to untangle that insane job title of his? And right away, we hit our first major clue, and it's a really good one, a total paradox. The word chancellor, the very job we're talking about, it's not even in his official title, not once.
Yeah. See, for most of Chinese history, chancellor, or Zaishang, wasn't an official position. It was what you did, not what you were. It's kind of like calling someone in an office a go-to person or a fixer. It describes their function, but you're not going to see chief fixer printed on their business card.
There's this great witty line about a much later official, a guy from the 19th century named Li Hongzhang, that captures this perfectly. He was from a city called Hefei, which literally translates to Fat Junction. But while he was in charge, the country really suffered. So people came up with this saying, the chancellor from Fat Junction makes the world thin. Everybody knew he was the real chancellor, even though that wasn't his title on paper.
So if chancellor isn't the title, then what is? Okay, let's go back to that 48-character beast. The real secret to Wang Dan's power is actually hidden inside just 8 of those characters.
The key phrase is Tong Zhong Shu Men Xia Ping Zhong Shi. I know, it looks like a mouthful, but trust me, when we break it down into these 3 parts, a really fascinating logic of power and control starts to pop out. So that very first character, Tong, basically means acting or jointly. And it's this super subtle but incredibly important signal from the emperor. It's his way of saying, look, you don't officially have the rank for this job, but I'm giving you the power to do it anyway. It immediately puts a check on this person's authority.
So why would an emperor do that? Well, think about it. If you promote an established insider, they come with their own power base, their own network. They're hard to manage. But an outsider, someone technically unqualified, their power comes from one person, and one person only, the emperor. They're loyal, they're eager to prove themselves, and, hey, if they step out of line, they're super easy to fire. Now for the second part, Zhongshu Menxia. This part actually names 2 of the most powerful departments in the government, but the key is that it smashes their names together. This isn't just a name, it's a process. It's like forcing the marketing team and the legal team to share a desk and sign off on every single decision together. This system was genius because it intentionally split the decision-making process into 3 separate chunks. First, the central secretariat comes up with an idea. Then the chancellery gets to review it and even veto it. And only then does a third department actually execute the plan. No single group controlled the whole pipeline. It forces people to debate and collaborate. And that final piece of the puzzle, Pingzhongshi, it translates to something like to jointly handle affairs. Sounds pretty vague, right? Well, that's the whole point. It means it's a temporary assignment, a mission. The emperor isn't giving you a permanent office, he's dispatching you to do a job. This gives him incredible flexibility. You're not getting a promotion, you're just being reassigned.
So, let's put it all together. We have an acting official who's forced to work with a rival department on a temporary mission. It sounds messy, it sounds confusing. So, why? Why would anyone design a system that seems so inefficient?
Because it wasn't a bug, it was a feature. This whole complicated, labyrinthine structure was actually a brilliant solution to one of the oldest problems in politics. And that problem is the eternal balancing act between security and efficiency. Any leader, an emperor or a CEO, has two competing goals. First, you have to make sure no one under you gets powerful enough to challenge you. But second, you also need the government to actually work. This whole system was their attempt to find that perfect, delicate balance.
You know, there's actually a great term for this. Scholars call it dual-track politics. It's this idea that any big organization is really run by two systems at the same time. You've got the official on-paper system, and then you have the informal system, which is how things really get done. The formal track is the beautiful org chart. It's rigid, it's logical, it looks perfect. But reality is messy, right? The informal track is all about negotiation, finding workarounds, and just finding practical ways to move forward. The Song Dynasty system was so clever because it basically embraced this, creating a flexible, informal space where the real work could happen. The great Song philosopher Zhu Xi put it perfectly. He said a true hero isn't some visionary who designs a flawless system. A true hero is a Zuoshi Duren, which just means a person who does things, someone who respects the rules but is also pragmatic enough to navigate the real, messy world and just get stuff done. That was Wang Dan.
And that kind of leaves us with a final question to think about. We're always trying to build these perfect, clean, logical systems. But the curious case of this Song Dynasty Chancellor kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? When is a system that looks messy and complicated on the outside actually the one that works the best?